the hero who held a gun to his wife's head, the real Steve McQueen. The photograph. August 1965, 2 in the morning, a chateau in the French countryside. The man in this photograph is Steve McQueen, 45 years old, the highest paid actor in the world, the face that defined American masculinity for an entire generation. Standing next to him is his wife, Neil Adams, a Broadway star who gave up everything to be with him. In 6 hours, this photograph will become evidence, because tonight, in that chateau, Steve McQueen will hold a loaded gun to his wife's head. He will force her to inhale cocaine, and he will demand, over and over, "Who did you sleep with?" He will slap her between questions. Their 2 children, Terry, age 8, and Chad, age 6, are asleep in the next room. This is the man the world called the King of Cool. But here's what they didn't tell you. Every woman who got close to Steve McQueen paid a price. His first wife lost her career. His second wife lost everything. And his daughter? She lost her life trying to earn his love. Today, we're showing you the receipts. This isn't a celebration. This is an audit. And the numbers don't lie. But before the gun, there was a pattern. And it started with a woman Hollywood forgot.
You should have that brandy after breakfast, not before. Listen, I don't mean to overstep myself, but would you like to join me in a pot of coffee?
The Blueprint of Control. 1930, Beech Grove, Indiana. Steve McQueen is born to a mother who drinks and a father who disappears when Steve is 6 months old. His father, Terrence William McQueen, was a stunt pilot, a daredevil, the kind of man who changed his name and moved states to avoid being found. He died in 1958 without ever acknowledging his son. Never sent a letter, never sent money, just vanished. 1933, Slater, Missouri. Steve's mother sends him to live on his great-uncle Claude's farm. He's 3 years old. She tells him it's temporary. It isn't. He spends the next 8 years there. Those years on the farm, Steve would later say, were the only peaceful years of his childhood, the only time he felt wanted. 1944, Los Angeles. Steve's mother remarries, her third husband. She brings Steve back to Los Angeles to live with them. Steve is 14 years old now. He doesn't know this city, doesn't know this man. Within 6 months, the stepfather and Steve are at war. The fights are brutal. One night, the stepfather grabs Steve by the collar and throws him down a flight of stairs. Steve lands hard. Bruised ribs, sprained wrist. His mother watches and says nothing. 1947, Chino Hills, California. Steve's mother can't control him anymore. He's running with street gangs, stealing cars, getting into fights. So she does what she thinks is best. She sends him away again. This time to the Junior Boys Republic, a reform school for troubled boys. Steve is 14 years old. Now, I'm not telling you this to excuse what's coming. I'm telling you this because abandonment teaches lessons. And the lesson Steve learned was simple. Never trust anyone. Strike first. Control everything. Because the moment you let your guard down, the moment you show weakness, someone will hurt you. And women, especially women, were not partners. They were potential threats. By 1956, Steve has perfected the performance. He's in New York studying acting. He's charming when he wants to be, dangerous when he needs to be. And he's learned that women respond to danger. They think they can fix him. They think they can be the one who saves him. That belief is what Steve exploits, over and over and over. Invoice number 1. Neil Adams, 1956, New York City, a Broadway theater. Neil Adams is a star. She's singing and dancing in the pajama game. Critics love her. Audiences adore her. She has a voice that could fill a theater without a microphone. She has a future. Steve McQueen is in the chorus. Nobody knows his name. Their first date is a motorcycle ride through Manhattan. She thinks it's romantic, spontaneous. What she doesn't know is that Steve has been watching her for weeks. He knows where she lives. He knows her routine. He knows she's successful. And he wants what she has. Within 1 week, Steve moves into her apartment. Within 3 months, he's using her Broadway connections to get meetings with casting directors. Within 6 months, they're married. Here's what Neil brings to the marriage: her career, her connections, her financial stability, her reputation. Here's what Steve brings: charm and a promise to be faithful. He breaks that promise within 3 months. 1958. Steve's career is starting to take off. He's been cast in a low-budget science fiction film called The Blob. He almost turns it down. Neil reads the script and tells him, "Take it. It's fun. People will remember you." She's right. The film becomes a cult classic. She also tells him, "Take off your shirt in every scene. You have the body for it." She's right about that, too. Steve's shirtless scenes become his trademark. By 1960, Steve is a recognizable face. By 1962, he's a star. The Magnificent Seven makes him a household name. The Great Escape makes him a legend. And Neil? By 1965, she hasn't had a leading role in 8 years. She's 31 years old. Her career is dead. Steve's career, meanwhile, is exploding. 1968, Bullet. 1968, The Thomas Crown Affair. By 1974, he's the highest-paid actor in the world, $12 million per film. Here's what Neil told an interviewer in 2011. She said, "I knew he was cheating. I'd find evidence, lipstick on his collar, hotel receipts, phone numbers, but I didn't confront him, because what I didn't know wouldn't hurt me. Except it did. It hurt quietly." That's not a marriage, that's a hostage negotiation. And the ransom was her entire career. But the worst was yet to come. The Chateau Incident, August 1965. The French countryside. Steve and Neela are in bed. It's 2 a.m. Steve has been drinking. He's used cocaine, a habit he picked up on film sets. Suddenly, out of nowhere, he asks, "Have you ever cheated on me?" Neela, half asleep, says, "What? No." Steve doesn't believe her. What happens next is not an argument, it's an interrogation. Steve forces Neela to inhale cocaine. Then he retrieves a gun from the nightstand. A loaded gun. He holds it to her head. "Who did you sleep with?" "Slap." "How many?" "Slap." "Where?" "Slap." Under the influence of cocaine, and terrified for her life, Neela confesses. Years ago, before Steve became famous, she had a brief affair with an Austrian actor named Maximilian Schell. It lasted a few weeks. It meant nothing. But Steve doesn't care about context. He only cares about betrayal. This continues for hours. In the next room, Terry wakes up. She's 8 years old. She hears her mother screaming. She hears her father's voice, loud and angry. She doesn't go to her parents' room. She's learned not to. She stays in bed, covers her ears, tries to go back to sleep. In the morning, Steve makes breakfast. He plays with Terry and Chad. He acts as if nothing happened. Neil sits at the table, silent. Her face is bruised. Her hands are shaking. The children don't ask questions. They've learned not to do that either. Neil never reports the incident, because reporting it means losing everything. Her marriage, her home, her children's father, her reputation. The press would call her hysterical. Steve's career would continue. Hers would end. And here's the thing about trauma. It doesn't announce itself. It settles in quietly. It teaches you lessons. It teaches you that love and terror can exist in the same person. That lesson destroyed Terry McQueen. She spent the next 33 years trying to unlearn it. She died trying.
In that room, that night, Terry learned that the people who are supposed to protect you can also be the people who hurt you the most. And that knowledge, that fundamental betrayal of trust, follows you. It follows you into every relationship, every decision, every quiet moment when you're alone with your thoughts. 7 years later, Neil finally files for divorce. The year is 1972. She's 43 years old. Her career is long dead. But at least she's free. Or so she thinks. The Manson murders. Before we continue, you need to understand why Steve carried that gun. Why his paranoia wasn't just paranoia. Why his fear became everyone else's nightmare. August 9th, 1969. Sharon Tate, the actress and wife of director Roman Polanski, is murdered at her home in Los Angeles. 4 others are also killed. The murders are carried out by members of the Manson family, a cult led by Charles Manson. Steve McQueen was supposed to be at that house that night. He was invited to a party. He canceled at the last minute. When Steve learns about the murders, he's shaken. No, shaken isn't the right word. He's destroyed, paranoid, convinced he could have been a victim, that he was supposed to be a victim, that Charles Manson had him on a list. After that night, Steve carries a loaded gun everywhere. On film sets, in his car, in his bedroom, at restaurants, at gas stations, everywhere. His paranoia, already severe, becomes pathological. He starts sleeping with weapons under his pillow. He installs security systems throughout his house. He hires bodyguards. His co-workers notice. During the filming of Le Mans in 1970, crew members report that Steve would pull out his gun during breaks, just to check it, just to make sure it was loaded. Directors learn not to surprise him, not to approach him from behind, because Steve McQueen might shoot first and ask questions later. And here's the irony. The king of cool, the man who made millions looking fearless on motorcycles and in car chases, was terrified. He wasn't carrying a gun to protect others. He was carrying it because he was afraid. The cool was a mask, and under the mask was a little boy who never stopped being scared. When scared people have power, they become dangerous. And when dangerous people have guns, someone always pays the price. The ego that destroyed friendships. Now, some of you might still be thinking, okay, so Steve McQueen was difficult at home, but he was a professional on set. He was respected by his peers. Let me show you the pattern on film sets, because the same need for control that destroyed his marriages also destroyed his professional relationships. The Magnificent Seven, 1960. Steve is cast alongside Yul Brynner, the Oscar-winning star of The King and I. Brynner is the lead. Steve is in a supporting role, but Steve can't accept that. During filming, Steve finds subtle ways to pull focus during Brynner's scenes. He tosses a coin, fiddles with his hat, rattles shotgun shells. Small, silent gestures that draw the viewer's eye to him, not Brynner. Brynner notices. He's furious. He demands scene changes. He even wears shoe lifts to appear taller than Steve in shared scenes. The tension is so bad that they don't speak to each other off camera for the entire shoot. Years later, they take jabs at each other in interviews. Brynner makes no secret of his dislike for Steve's behavior. Robert Vaughn, another co-star in The Magnificent Seven, later said, "Steve McQueen was one of the most insecure men I'd ever met. In every scene, he would find ways to move, to adjust his hat, to fiddle with his gun, anything to distract the audience while another actor spoke." James Garner, who appeared with Steve in The Great Escape, didn't hide his feelings either. He once bluntly said that Steve McQueen wasn't an actor. He suggested that Steve relied more on looks and charisma than acting talent. Garner believed Steve had copied parts of his style early in his career. To Garner, this wasn't a compliment. It was a lack of originality. Charles Bronson, also in The Magnificent Seven, refused to ever work with Steve again after that film. He saw Steve's behavior as juvenile and self-centered. But perhaps the most telling feud was with Paul Newman. 1974, The Towering Inferno. Two of Hollywood's biggest stars, both playing heroes in a disaster film, and both fighting over who gets top billing. The solution? Steve's name appears first but lower on the poster. Paul's name appears second but higher. They count their lines in the script to make sure they have exactly the same number. They measure their screen time down to the second. Why? Because Steve McQueen can't share the spotlight, even with Paul Newman, one of the most respected actors of the generation, even in a film where they're supposed to be saving lives together. So here's the question. Why? Why does the king of cool need to steal scenes? Why does he need to control his wives? Why does he carry a loaded gun everywhere? Because Steve McQueen wasn't cool. He was terrified. Terrified of being abandoned, like his father abandoned him. Terrified of being forgotten, like his mother forgot him. Terrified of being weak, like he was as a child. Terrified of not being the star. Terrified of not being enough. The cool was a mask, and under the mask was a little boy who never stopped being afraid. Invoice number 2. Ali MacGraw, 1972. Ali MacGraw is 33 years old. She's just won a Golden Globe for Love Story. The tagline of that film is, "Love means never having to say you're sorry." The irony of what's about to happen is almost unbearable. Ali is married to Robert Evans, one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood. She's at the absolute peak of her career. And then she meets Steve McQueen on the set of The Getaway. Ali is hesitant about taking the role. She later admits in her memoir that she already sensed the danger of working so closely with Steve. She writes, "I knew I was going to get in some serious trouble with Steve." And she was right. From the moment they meet on set, Steve pursues her. He doesn't seduce her, he hunts her. He shows up at her trailer, uninvited. He sends flowers to her hotel. He tells her, "You're too talented to be married to a desk jockey." Within 3 months, Ali files for divorce from Robert Evans, the man who gave her the role that made her famous. The scandal reverberates throughout Hollywood. July 1973, Ali and Steve marry. But before the wedding, Steve insists that Ali sign a prenuptial agreement. The terms are brutal. If they divorce, Ali gets $0. Nothing. She signs it. Because she loves him. Because she believes love conquers all. Then Steve makes his second demand. "I don't want a working wife. Dinner should be on the table when I get home." Ali MacGraw, the star of the highest-grossing film of 1970, becomes a housewife. Imagine this. You're at the top of your profession. Golden Globe on your mantle, scripts flooding in, offers from every major studio, and the man you love says, "Give it all up, for me." So you do. Because that's what love means, right? 1973 to 1977. Ali and Steve live in a secluded beach house in Malibu. They host barbecues. They walk along the sand. To the outside world, they look like a glamorous Hollywood couple living the dream. But behind closed doors, it's suffocating. Steve's rules for Ali are simple. No acting roles, no male friends, no leaving the house without permission. Raise Josh, Ali's son from her marriage to Robert Evans, alone while Steve races cars and motorcycles. Meanwhile, Steve is having public affairs, coming home at 3 in the morning, using coke and marijuana daily. The paranoia from the Manson murders is getting worse. He's carrying guns everywhere. He's convinced someone is always watching, always planning, always waiting to hurt him. Ali starts drinking, heavily, searching for some kind of relief. But the relief never comes. She's trapped in a beautiful prison, a beach house that might as well have bars on the windows. In her 2011 memoir, Ali writes about waking up one morning and not recognizing herself in the mirror. She writes, "I had become so small, so quiet, so invisible. I was disappearing." 1977. Ali tells Steve, "Sam Peckinpah offered me a role in Convoy. I want to act again." Steve's response is immediate. "In that case, we're filing for divorce." They divorce in 1978. What did Ali lose? Her career. At 38 years old, Hollywood considered her too old. Her roles dried up. Her money. Remember the prenup? Steve made sure she got nothing. Her self-worth. She spent 5 years being told she wasn't good enough, that her ambitions didn't matter, that she only existed to serve him. What did Steve lose? Nothing. He remarried within 2 years. In a 2018 interview, Ali reflected on her time with Steve. She said, "When Steve entered a room, everyone's head turned. Men, women, children. He was magnetic. But magnetism can also be a trap. I was trapped for 5 years." Ali MacGraw, one of the brightest stars of the 1970s, never fully recovered. She eventually moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. She left Hollywood entirely. She wrote a memoir. She found peace, but she never forgot the cost. The Final Wife, Barbara Minty, 1978. Steve McQueen is 48 years old. He's divorced from Ali. He's drinking heavily, using drugs, racing motorcycles as if he's trying to outrun something. Maybe he's trying to outrun himself. 1979. Steve meets Barbara Minty. She's 22 years old, a model, beautiful, young enough to be his daughter, young enough not to know about Neil or Ali or the pattern that destroyed them both. They marry in January 1980, just months after they meet. And then, in March 1980, Steve starts feeling sick. Shortness of breath, chest pain, weight loss. He ignores it at first, tells himself it's just stress, just age, just the years of hard living catching up. But it's not stress. It's mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive form of cancer caused by asbestos exposure, likely from his years working on film sets and racing cars. The doctors tell him he has months to live, maybe a year if he's lucky. Steve refuses to accept it. He flies to Mexico to seek alternative treatments. Clinics that promise miracles, treatments that American doctors won't approve. Barbara goes with him. She holds his hand. She sits by his bedside. She does everything she can to save him. November 7th, 1980. Steve McQueen dies on an operating table in Juarez, Mexico. He's 50 years old. Barbara is 23. In later interviews, Barbara speaks about those final months. She says Steve was terrified, that the king of cool spent his last days afraid of dying, afraid of being forgotten, afraid of what came next. She says, "He told me he had regrets, that he wished he'd been a better father, a better husband, but he never said sorry, not once." Barbara Minty was the only wife who didn't lose her career to Steve McQueen, because she never had time to build one. She was too busy watching him die. The second generation pays, but the most devastating cost wasn't paid by Steve's wives. It was paid by his children. 1959. Terry McQueen is born, Steve's daughter with Neil. Terry's childhood is a masterclass in trauma. August 1965. Terry is 8 years old. She hears her mother screaming in the next room. She hears the slaps. She hears her father's voice, loud and threatening. She doesn't go to her parents' room. She's learned that's not safe. She stays in bed. covers her ears, tries to make it stop. In the morning, her father makes pancakes. He smiles. He jokes. He acts like everything is fine. Terry learns a lesson that night. She learns that love and terror can exist in the same person, that the people who are supposed to protect you can also be the people who hurt you the most. Terry spends her entire life trying to earn her father's love. She becomes an actress, like him. She produces films, hoping to impress him. She names her daughter Molly, Steve's favorite name. She works tirelessly to preserve his legacy after his death. She does everything she can to show him, even after he's gone, that she's worthy, that she's good enough. But Steve's response during his life? He rarely calls, rarely visits. When he does, he's distant, critical, never satisfied. This is what the children of abusers do. They spend their lives auditioning for love, performing, perfecting, hoping that this time, they'll finally be good enough. Terry was never good enough. Not because she wasn't, but because Steve didn't have love to give. He didn't even love himself. 1998, Terry McQueen dies. She's 38 years old. The official cause is respiratory failure following complications from liver disease. But those who knew her say the real cause was a broken heart. Years of trying to earn love that would never come. Years of carrying trauma that was never healed. Terry's final interview, given just weeks before her death, she said, "I spent 38 years trying to earn my father's approval. I realize now he didn't have approval to give. He didn't even approve of himself." She spent her entire life paying for her father's violence, and she died trying. Her brother Chad survived, but in a 2023 interview, just months before his own death from organ failure, Chad said, "Growing up, we learned that Dad's love was conditional. Perform well, be quiet, don't ask questions, and maybe you'd get a smile. But you'd never get a hug, never get an 'I'm proud of you.' We learned that love was something you earned, not something you deserved." Both of Steve McQueen's children died before the age of 65. Both carried trauma their entire lives. Both spent decades trying to understand why their father couldn't love them. The pattern repeats. Let me show you something. Steve McQueen, 1930 to 1980, used power to control women, isolated victims from their careers, used prenups and contracts as weapons, left a trail of destroyed lives, died a legend. Harvey Weinstein, 1952 to present, used power to control women, isolated victims from their careers, used NDAs and legal threats as weapons, left a trail of destroyed lives, died a legend? No. Convicted in 2020. The pattern is identical. The outcome was different. Why? Because in 2017, women had #MeToo. In 1965, they had silence. The machinery is the same. Power plus opportunity minus accountability equals victims. The only difference is we stopped protecting the machine. But here's the uncomfortable truth. For every Harvey Weinstein who gets convicted, there are a dozen Steve McQueens who die with their reputations intact, because they lived in an era when women's voices didn't matter, when abuse was called passion, when control was called love, when fear was called protection. So how many more Steve McQueens are out there right now? How many men are using their power, their charm, their fame to control and destroy the women around them? How many women are staying silent because they know no one will believe them? How many children are growing up in homes where love looks like terror, where breakfast follows screaming, where "I love you" comes with conditions and weapons?
The Reckoning. When Steve McQueen died in 1980, the obituaries called him the King of Cool, a legend, an icon, the embodiment of American masculinity. Nobody mentioned the gun he held to Neely's head. Nobody mentioned the prenup that destroyed Ali's career. Nobody mentioned the paranoia that made everyone around him afraid. Nobody mentioned Terry and Chad, two children who spent their lives trying to earn love from a man who had none to give. Because that's not the story Hollywood wanted to tell. But here's what the women said. Neely Adams, in a 2011 interview. "I loved him, but I was also terrified of him. That's not love. That's captivity." Ali McGraw, in 2018. "I wish we had both grown old sober, but we never got that chance. He made sure of that." Barbara Minty, in a 1990 interview. "He died afraid. The King of Cool died terrified, and he never apologized. Not once." Terry McQueen, weeks before her death in 1998. "I spent my whole life trying to earn his approval. I never got it. And I realize now I never would have, because he couldn't even approve of himself." The next time you watch Bullet and see that Mustang chase through San Francisco, remember. The next time you see Steve McQueen jump that motorcycle in The Great Escape, remember, the motorcycle was cool. The man was not. Every frame of those films was paid for, not in dollars, in lives, in careers, in childhoods, in the quiet deaths of women who gave up everything and got nothing in return. The bill came due. Steve McQueen never paid it. Neil paid. Ali paid. Terry paid. Chad paid. Barbara paid. If we forget their names, we're complicit. If we keep calling him a legend without asking who paid the price, we enable the next one. And he's out there, right now, in some studio, on some set, in some relationship, learning that charm is a weapon, that control is love, that fear is protection. Remember their names: Neil Adams, Ali McGraw, Barbara Minty, Terry McQueen, 1959 to 1998, Chad McQueen, 1960 to 2023. The hero held a to his wife's head. The hero destroyed every woman who loved him. The hero's children died trying to earn his love. That's not a hero. That's a cautionary tale. And if we don't remember it, we're doomed to repeat it.